Okay, let's talk about multiplying and dividing these real numbers. Okay, and again, when everything's positive, it's a no-brainer. We just need to worry about the negatives, okay? When I take, the rules here are easier than addition and subtraction. If I have a positive number, times a positive number, we got it, right? No problem. If I have two negative numbers, -5 times -2. Now notice here, this parentheses means time. There's no sign in front of this parentheses. That's a little different than when we were adding. By a -5 plus -2, I said the only reason for this parentheses is just so we don't have the plus sign and the negative side by side, because that's frowned upon. But here, this parentheses means multiplication. So negative times negative will always give me a positive. Always. Okay? So positive times positive is positive, but negative times negative is also positive. Okay? When I have a positive number and a negative number multiplied together, I always get a negative answer. There's no battle of the signs here. It doesn't matter which one is negative. If one of them is negative, the product, the multiplication is negative. Okay? So that's it. There's no battle of the signs. There's none of that. It's if they're all positive, we got it. If they're both negative, then it becomes positive. And if either one is negative, it becomes negative. Okay? Multiplying by 0, I think we all know this. 8 times 0 equals 0, right? So multiplying a number by 0, doesn't matter if it's a negative number. If I multiply a number by 0, I always get 0. If I multiply a number by 1, I just get that same number, right? Doesn't matter what it is. Okay, so a couple of properties there that I know that we knew, but just to refresh. Okay? All right, positive times a negative. 6 times -3, -18. No problem. Negative times a negative. -9 times -10, positive 90. Okay? The rules don't change for fractions or decimals. -1/5 times, 2/3 is going to be a -2 over 15. Okay? No problem there. What if we have more than two numbers at work here? I mean, what if I have a -4 times a -3 times a -2, for example? Oh boy, more than two numbers. Well, let's work it through. -4 times -3, that's negative times negative, that's positive 12. But now I've got to take positive 12 times -2, and positive times negative is negative. So -24. Okay? How about this? -2 times -3 times -2 again times -4. Okay? Now incidentally, over here I put the first number in a parentheses, and over here I didn't. There are times when a parentheses doesn't really matter, doesn't change anything. I could have put it here as well. Okay? I didn't have to. I didn't have to over here. It's just, I'm not always consistent. But there are other times when a parenthesis is absolutely necessary. But in that case, it wasn't. Okay, so don't be confused by that. All right, negative times negative is positive. So positive 6. I'm just going to bring everything else down. Positive 6 times -2 is -12. And -12 times -4 is positive 48. Okay? So look what we have here. I've got 3 negatives multiplied together, and the answer is negative. I've got 4 negatives multiplied together, and the answer is positive. So there's a pattern there, and we could do more examples, but basically the takeaway is if you have an odd number of negative signs, so 3 is an odd number, right? If I had 5 or 7 or 9 or 11, an odd number of negatives is going to give me a negative answer. An even number of negatives will give me a positive answer. So 2 negatives multiplied together, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, those are all going to give me positive answers. Okay, so if I have a big string of numbers being multiplied, I just have to worry about the multiplication of the numbers. Then I'll go back and count how many negative signs were in there, and that'll tell me whether it's positive or negative. Okay? Negative 1 times negative 2 times negative 2 again, times 3 times negative 4. Okay? So I just have to take 1 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 4 and get the answer, which is going to be 48. But then I just got to go back and say, well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 negative signs. That's an even number, so it's positive 48. Okay? That's how we can do it. All right? All good with multiplication. The rules for division are the same. If I'm dividing two negatives, I get a positive. If I've got one positive and one negative and I'm dividing them, it's going to be negative. Okay? Much like, subtraction we said is the same as adding the opposite. Well, dividing is the same as multiplying by what's called the reciprocal. 8 divided by 2 is the same thing as saying 8 times 1 over 2. Okay, think of that 2 as a fraction. And flip it over and it becomes a 1/2. And change the divide to a time. Just like we were dividing fractions, right? When we divide fractions, what do? We leave the first fraction alone. We change the divide to a times and we flip the second fraction over. Same thing. Okay, so the meaning of division is multiplied by the reciprocal. Okay? So let's do it here. Negative 15 divided by 3. We know 15 divided by 3 is 5. We just have to figure out, oh yeah, one negative and one positive, so the answer is going to have to be negative. Okay, maybe I'll write it as a fraction. Negative 20 divided by negative 4. Well, I've got two negatives being divided, so the answer's got to be positive. Okay, and again, back to the fractions. To make a fraction negative, it's only got one negative sign. This fraction has two negative signs, so it's actually a positive number, because negative divided by negative is positive. Okay, so a fraction only has one negative sign. Okay? Let's throw a fraction in there. Negative in front of the fraction bar, which I don't like. Negative 3/4 divided by negative, 5/9. Okay, let's do that. Okay. I prefer the negatives up top. I'll just write it like that. Negative 3/4 times negative 9/5. Flip it over. Are there any canceling opportunities here? There aren't, are there? Wow. Oh well. Negative 3 times negative 9 is a positive 27. 4 times 5 is a positive 20. Okay? Now you may have done the following, and that's fine if you did. You may have said, okay, negative 3/4, I gotcha. But then when I did the old flip-flop, the old switcheroo there, I made it 9 over negative 5. I put the negative downstairs there. Okay? So you're going to get something that looks a little different. You're going to get negative 27 divided by negative 20. Okay? However, negative divided by negative is positive, so you really need to go one more step here and call that positive 27 over 20. So you're going to get the same thing I got. Okay? Okay, what else do we need to do here? Oh yes, okay. I don't know why. For some reason, some students are so bothered by the following. A negative in front of a parentheses, and then some stuff inside the parentheses. That should be so easy, but again, some students struggle with it, and I'm not sure why. I'm still trying to figure it out. Negative means take the opposite of something, right? I want you to tell me the opposite of what's inside that parentheses. Well, the opposite would be there's a negative x minus a 4. That's the opposite. Okay? So a negative outside the parentheses. Another way to think of it, even if the 1 is not shown, you can sneak a 1 in here, right there. And you could say, I'm taking a negative 1 and distributing it across. And negative 1 times positive x would give me a negative x. Okay, then you can write the plus sign if you want. And negative 1 times positive 4 gives me a negative 4. And you see what I have here, it looks slightly different, but it's really not. This is minus a 4, and this is plus a negative 4, right? Minus positive is the same as plus negative. I just think this way is a little cleaner to write it, okay? So that's why I would write it that way, instead of having that extra parentheses in there, but it's the same value. Okay, the other way to say is just say, okay, this negative gives everybody inside a change of signs. They were both positive inside, now they're both negative when I drop the parentheses. Okay, so let's practice just a couple of those. 4 different scenarios. Negative 11x plus 5 like that. Okay, what's it going to be? Negative 11x, and then either plus negative 5, or I would just call it minus 5. Okay? How about this one now? Negative out front, 11x minus 5. Distribute that negative across. Negative 11x, but now minus times minus is going to be plus 5. Okay? How about this one? Negative out front, negative 11x plus 5. It's like distributing a negative 1 across, so that's going to turn that into a positive 11x and a minus 5. Finally, make everything negative in there and a negative outside, so that negative distributes across and everything becomes positive. Okay? Alright. Let's stick one little algebra. Let's do 2. 2 little algebra businesses in here. Let's do what if I said negative 3 parentheses 2x minus 5? Distribute that negative across. A negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. A negative 3 times a negative 5 is a positive 15. Okay? And let's trick this last one up here. Let's do 5 parentheses 2y minus 9 minus parentheses 9y minus 8. Oh yeah, babe, we got a lot there. We can do it. Okay, I'm going to distribute my 5 across. So what's that going to give me? 10y minus 45. And then I got that minus in front of the parentheses, which is like distributing a negative 1 across. So that's going to become minus 9y plus 8. Combine like terms, I've got a 10y and a minus 9y, so that's a 1y or just a y. And a negative 45 and a positive 8. I'm going to put them together, and what am I going to get? A negative 37. Okay, so 1y minus 37 is one way to write it. You don't have to show the 1, so you may have written it like that. Perfectly acceptable. Or you may prefer the whole plus negative business. Perfectly acceptable. I just think it's a little clunky. Okay, and again, you don't have to show the 1. All 4 of these are identical, interchangeable ways to present the answer. All 4 are fine. Okay, again, the simplest of all is that one, but none of them are wrong. Okay? Alright, so that concludes the multiplying and dividing of numbers. So the next video we're going to start talking about exponents and roots.